Hello, lovelies. I'm so glad to see you. And as always, I hope you're happy, healthy, and if at all possible, safe at home with your loved ones. Now, with Mother's Day around the corner, I thought this would be a perfect time to talk about one of my favorite recipes, pancakes. They're perfect for brunch, for breakfast in bed, and just a really nice way to show people how much you care. And I realized that after all of these years here on the Domestic Geek, I have shared so many different kinds of pancakes. I've shared protein pancakes, low-carb pancakes, Greek yogurt pancakes. I've even shared pineapple upside-down pancakes. But I don't think I've ever actually shared just a classic homemade pancake recipe, and I am going to fix that today, along with a ton of great tips and tricks for getting your pancakes right each and every time. Now, these pancakes start with some regular good old-fashioned all-purpose flour, and I'm just gonna get started by mixing in my dry ingredients. So first up, I am going to be adding just a touch of sugar, so about a tablespoon or so. The sugar in this recipe is optional, but I think it is absolutely delicious. So if you can use it, do. Next, I am going to add my baking powder. So the baking powder in this recipe is going to give your pancakes lots of lift, make sure they are nice and fluffy. That's of course what we want. We want nice fluffy pancakes. If you don't have baking powder, you can definitely use baking soda in a pinch, but baking powder is ideal. And then finally, I am going to stir in just a little bit of salt. We're talking about a 1/4 teaspoon or so. Then we're just going to give this all a really nice whisk. You wanna make sure that your dry ingredients are really well combined. Now, some of you have been asking about the exact measurements of the ingredients that I use in my recipes. I should mention that I always include those in the description box below the video. So if you click the Show More button just below the video, you'll see the link. It'll take you to the full written recipe with all the measurements, ingredients, and everything you need to make it at home. Once my dry ingredients are combined, I'm just going to set this bowl aside and get to work on mixing up my wet ingredients. Now, first we are going to get some milk in our bowl. Now, any pancake purist will tell you that when it comes to making pancakes, buttermilk is always best. But these days, I'm really trying to limit my trips to the supermarket, so I don't have buttermilk on hand. Instead, I'm using regular whole milk, and it works just as well. Honestly, guys, this recipe is really forgiving. Use whatever milk you have on hand. To my milk, I am going to add 2 large eggs. I'm just gonna get them right into my bowl like so. And I'm also going to be adding a couple tablespoons of melted butter. And as soon as that's all mixed in, you just wanna give this a really good whisk. Now it's time to just bring them all together. I'm just going to pour my wet ingredients into my dry ingredients like so. And I'm going to be ditching my whisk in favor of just a simple spoon like this. And basically at this point, all we wanna do is make sure that our ingredients are just combined. You don't wanna over-mix your batter. It develops gluten, which makes your pancakes tough as opposed to nice and fluffy and tender. So we're just gonna mix this up like so. And just as soon as that batter has come together, you can stop stirring it. Do not worry if you have a few lumps in your batter. It's totally fine. They will work themselves out during the cooking process. You do not have to fret. Another great tip for really optimizing your pancake making is to let your batter sit for at least 5 minutes before it hits the griddle. While that batter is resting, I wanna take a few minutes just to talk to you guys about the best way to cook our pancakes. The first thing you'll notice is that I have a non-stick frying pan on the stove. Now, you obviously do not have to use a non-stick frying pan. You could use cast iron here or stainless steel, but I find non-stick is really, really wonderful for pancakes. It's very, very forgiving and it requires a lot less butter and grease. So that's why I love using it. As you can see, this is my classic crepe pan. If you don't have one of these, it's fine. Any non-stick frying pan is going to do. Now, a lot of people like to cook their pancakes with butter, and that is totally understandable because of course, butter is super flavorful and delicious. But the problem with butter is that it tends to burn, especially as you're doing 2, 3, 4 pancakes. So I actually prefer using a flavorless oil like a vegetable or a canola oil, and very, very little of it. That's the added bonus of using a nonstick pan. So basically, I've just really lightly greased a paper towel, and I'm just going to give my pan a really, really light greasing. That is all it's going to take for each of our pancakes. Now, to make sure my pancakes are completely uniform, I recommend using something like an ice cream scoop. That way, you know your pancakes are going to be the same size every time, and that's going to help you create a really perfect stack. Now, I've got my heat set to about medium here, and I'm just going to get my first pancake onto the griddle and let that work its magic. You'll see it'll start to flatten out all on its own without your help. You can start to see the bubbles are breaking the surface, the edges are starting to dry up, which means it is time to give this pancake a nice flip. And I am going to do that with my handy dandy spatula. This is actually a fish spatula. It's one of my favorite kitchen tools of all time because it's got a really thin edge and makes flipping things so super easy. Then we are just going to repeat this process another 10 to 12 times, and what we end up with is a stack of pancakes that is absolutely irresistible. Now, of course, these pancakes could be served up with just some butter and a good drizzle of maple syrup. I am Canadian, so you know I do believe in a whole lot of maple syrup. But if you want to take these way over the top, I highly recommend mixing up a batch of my very berry sauce. And it really couldn't be simpler to do. It all starts with some berries in a small saucepan on the stove. Today, I'm using some fresh strawberries, blackberries, and blueberries, but any combination of berries will work. And if you only have frozen berries on hand, they will work in this recipe as well. To my berries, I'm going to be adding the juice of half a lemon and a good sprinkle of sugar. Now, the sugar in this recipe is optional. You can leave your berries just as they are, but I find the berries can be a bit on the tart side, so if you want to add a little sugar, it tends to offset a bit of that acidity. My final ingredient is a nice splash of vanilla extract, and I'm basically just going to bring this mixture to a simmer over medium heat and then let it cook away anywhere between 7 to 10 minutes. What you'll start to notice first is that those berries will burst and release all of their amazing juices. That is a really good sign. Next, as it cooks away, it'll start to reduce and thicken up to become a really saucy consistency, and that means that it is ready to come off the heat. After about 5 minutes off the heat, what you're going to end up with is something that's got more of a jammy consistency, and that is perfect for pouring on top of your pancakes. Guys, how irresistible does this look? I seriously can't think of a more delicious way to show someone how much you care. So go ahead and spoil someone with these yummy pancakes. Hey, maybe you want to spoil yourself. I am all about the self-care these days. So go ahead and make yourself a nice giant stack. You deserve it. I hope you'll give this recipe a try, and if you do, be sure to tweet me, Instagram me, or Facebook me a photo, because you know how much I love seeing your kitchen creations. Remember, these recipes are linked in the description box below, so you can find them there. And finally, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, because there is lots more deliciousness where this came from.